party. And one of the heads of the studio came up to me and said, "It looks to me like Lee Marvin's about your party." But his wife got him on the side. I went up to see him. I said, "Lee, I think you've had a couple too many and maybe you better take it easy." And he looked at me and he pulled his arm back and said, "I'm going to tear your head off." And I said, "Lee, very quiet, very calm. You got to calm down. You had a little too much to drink. I'm going to tear you up." And then his wife came up to him and led him over to a window seat. They sat there for quite a while, and then Lee left the party very docilely.
Was she the designated driver?
I would assume so. I would assume so. Right.
You know, Bob is keeping himself squeaky clean over there. I'm going to believe that he's as squeaky clean as he does.
I don't claim to be squeaky clean. I'm just telling you what happened that time. You want some other interesting stories? I got them, baby.
The audience waits, sir.
Discretion is the better part of valor.
By the way, I've taken my first golf lesson about a month ago, and I'm almost 40.
Is that your handicap?
Why did you golf lesson?
I'm not, did I say golf?
You said golf.
I meant skiing, I meant skiing.
skiing.
Yeah,
Oh,
skiing.
okay.
My first skiing lesson, yes. And I thought it was quite a fool, but it was fun. I may do it again.
My first skiing, I went up to a place called Wrightwood, which is just outside of Los Angeles, and at the time my profile was very high related to wagon train. And I enjoyed it, but when I fell down, I could not get up. I'd fallen in the snow and I didn't know what muscle to push to get up. And my wife was with me, and she would go down, and when she got going fast, she would sit down deliberately because speed frightens her, and she could get up just like that. So it was kind of funny to be there and everybody's hero and saying, "Would somebody help me get my butt out of the snow?"
Dobie?
Yeah.
Do you have an interesting John Wayne story for the audience that they might not be familiar with? Something that might be
Oh,
of
there's a
interest?
lot. Yeah. Well, Duke would, a lot of times, well, there were two John Waynes. There was one that worked for John Ford, and then there was one when John Ford wasn't around.
Oh, right.
And he could get short-tempered once in a while, but usually what happened on shows was that Wayne actually knew a great deal about making motion pictures. And sometimes he was a lot smarter than the director was. And then when he knew that, then it wasn't as much fun because he was busy kind of supervising the whole production, you know. One time, though, with him, he rode this horse called Dollar. That horse lived to be about 35 years old. He had him in the Searchers, and then I worked with him down in Mexico and on those shows in the 60s and 70s, and he's still riding that same horse. But if you walked up behind that horse, on your horse, he'd cripple your horse because he'd kick. And if you walked in front of him, he'd bite you. So I said to him, "Why do you ride that horse?" He said, "Because he's mean like me," he said. So we're doing this shot in Durango, Mexico, and it's on a movie called The Undefeated. And Duke is in the front, up towards the front wagon, and then I'm behind him playing a harmonica. So I got my horse from here to that camera away from Duke because I didn't want him to cripple that horse and kick my horse. So he turned around and, you know, very kind of violently, you know, he says, "Get up, you know, get up here," like. I said, "No." He said, "What do you mean, no?" I said, "Because this, oh, I forgot. In long shots, a lot of times, and Bob knows this, they give you a rubber gun to do chases and stuff. Then you don't have that heavy pistol. And they have a hard rubber gun that you put in there for doing chases and stuff like that. Well, Duke had one of those rubber guns on. And I said, he said, "Get up." And I said, "I can't." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because your horse will kick me." And he says, "I know it, goddammit." And he starts beating this horse over the head with this rubber gun. You know, I mean, I really got that horse in a lot of trouble. But he was a lot of fun most of the time, especially in the younger times, back in the 40s and the early 50s. He was just like a big kid. We had a lot of fun together.
With all due respect to you and Mr. Wayne, I want you to know truthfully, I never carried a rubber gun.
Oh, yeah.
I did have a rubber knife, in my jeans in wagon train. But I never did. I didn't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he'd have killed that horse would have been a regular gun.
Any rubber ducks in your bathroom?
Only when I was a little boy.
Jeannie, part of my exhaustive research tells me that you knew the king, Elvis. Would you confirm or deny this?
Yes, I did know the king. I dated him a few times before he went into the army, and after he came back, I saw him a number of times. He was sweet, he was romantic, he was a great kisser. He was just wonderful, kind, sweet. Shut up, Bob.
Did he have any?
Say a word.
Did he have any personality traits that might be of interest to the audience?
Well, when he meets somebody, the first time he'd meet them, he'd always want to know, are you wearing panties under that dress? It wasn't just me, it was everybody.
Democratic.
Oh, yes. And one time I went to a costume party, but this is the night I met him. I was wearing an Indian costume that goes between the legs. So he tells a friend of his, he said, go over and pull it up. I want to see if she's wearing any panties underneath it. So I've got a photograph bending over and letting him pull this up to see that I did indeed have panties underneath.
Inquiring minds want to know.
He was wonderful.
Part of my research touches upon Mr. Frank Sinatra. Would that be accurate?
Yes, I had a great long romance with Frank, about 7 years, and I loved him dearly. But he was somewhat boring for me because he was older, much older.
Give me a break.
Not much older. But I loved him dearly. I wasn't in love, but I loved him. He wanted to marry me. I didn't want to marry him because he said to me, if I marry you, could I make love to your girlfriends? I said, no, Frank, I'm not marrying you if that's the way you feel.
All my life I've heard women say,
You ought to write a book.
I have got a book written, 590 pages.
All my life I've heard women say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. For the edification of our audience, would you tell us the difference?
I don't know the difference.
Yeah,
Do you know the difference?
yeah.
Pick it up, Dobie.
Well, I love Ben Johnson, but I wasn't in love.
That's not what I heard.
Mr. Horton,
Yes.
during your years on the wagon train with so many guest stars, there must have been a plethora of personalities. Would you share some memories of some of them that you personally found interesting off-screen?
Off-screen?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I really can't say anything about that, about off-screen. I'm related to the people that I've worked with. I think that one has impressions of actors that they particularly enjoyed working with for one reason or another. And who did Marty? Ernest Borgnine. I did 2 films with him on Wagon Train, and I thought he was the strongest actor I had ever worked with. And I don't mean physically strong. His presence was immovable and wonderful to work with because the presence that you had to work with and against was so strong that you knew exactly what you were doing, so to speak. On the other side of the coin, there's nothing worse than working with an actor where he's supposed to be holding a gun on you, and while he's and the close-up is on you, and while you're doing it, he's twirling the gun and thinking about when he's going to get home and meet his wife or whatever. And that's the only time I ever really got angry on the set. I was working with an actor, and it was a close-up of mine, and he was just kind of, looking around, and it's not only rude, but I just grabbed the goddamn gun out of his hand and said, for Christ's sake, support me. Because that really, when you get to close-ups, you need that support to find the truth of the sequence, the truth of the moment on the screen. That's really about it.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't see all of you from where I'm sitting, but just glancing around, there's a very special compliment when some of our guest stars come in to witness the actions of the other guest stars and in a sense pay respect to them, and I think we should acknowledge some of this. Up front here, we have Mr. Will Hutchins and his attractive wife, Barbara. Would they please stand? And although it's difficult for me to ascertain, I think I see the pretty blonde hair of Dorothy Best with her husband, James Best, back there. Would you kindly stand? Next to James and Dorothy, I believe I see Jane Adams. That means Tom is nearby somewhere. Jane Adams and Tom. Thank you for paying the courtesy to your peers of showing up this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, it's hard to believe, but we've been talking in excess of 90 minutes. I think I'd like each one of our guests to perhaps make a final comment to our audience this evening. And then we'll adjourn until 2 p.m. tomorrow, where Mike will be doing the podium at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and he'll post the guests. Would you like to start, Mr. Horton? A final thought to our audience?
Well, this is really not to the audience, but it's really to Adobe that I did a remake of Red River a few years ago, and I was very pleased to play the role that Carey Sr. played in the original Red River. Very, very pleased.
Well, that's terrific.
It's true.
Jeannie, a final thought to the ladies and gentlemen of the audience?
Well, I'd like to tell them how much I enjoy being here in Tennessee. It's the first time I've been here, and I absolutely love it. I even like the rain, but unfortunately I didn't get to hear the thunder and see the lightning because I was out like a light. I wasn't drunk. It was very tiring yesterday.
A concussion of some sort?
That's hard work, smiling and being charming.
Hang around, honey, you'll hear the thunder.
You'll mention it. Dolby, before I ask you for a final word, a thought comes to mind. I know you did the eulogy for Mr. Ben Johnson. Were any personalities in attendance from Mr. Johnson's career that attended the eulogy?
Oh my, yes, there was almost 1,000 people, between 900 and 1,000 people there, and it seems like just a short time ago. It was just a short time ago, and a lot of folks came down from Los Angeles. My old friend who went to high school with my kids, Tom Stella, came down. Stan Elliott was supposed to come, but he was working. Lee Horsley came down. Bert Kennedy, the director, came down. A lot of people, and then that place, they had a tent outside the church too, with the TV in it, because the church couldn't hold all the folks that were there.
Were the services in Los Angeles or in Oklahoma?
No, it was in the services were in Phoenix,
I see.
or Scottsdale.
I see.
And then they had the burial in Oklahoma, where he's buried in Pawhuska on a side hill next to his wife Carol. Ben was lonely in that big house. You know, he won so many awards as a cowboy, and so many awards as an actor, including the Academy Award, that he had this big trophy room and stuff, and all these saddles he won, and buckles and all kinds of stuff. And I don't know what's going to happen to those. I hope they're well taken care of. But he didn't like, after Carol died 2 years ago, he didn't like staying in the house all by himself. Well, his mother, who's 96 next month, is still alive. She was 18 when Ben was born. And she's around the corner from him, and he took awfully good care of his mom. There's a lady there who takes care of his mom. She's also a good cook, so Ben was over there all the time because this lady was a good cook. And that's where he was when he passed away, over at his mother's house. So Marilyn and I were there with his mom for 3 days, and she's quite a woman. She's a strong lady, and doesn't have any intention of giving up. She's going to keep going, I'm pretty sure. But you can feel the loss. All the people that I know in motion pictures and cowboys that just feel a tremendous sense of loss from losing old Ben. And he called me Old Dove, and I called him Old Ben. I guess the reason we got along so well is that I'm kind of an opposite. Ben was like Old Man River. He just was steady as a river is, and I'm always way up high, and I'm way down low, and I'd blow my stack every once in a while, and Ben would always say, "Dope's having one of his sinking spells." And that's the way I remember him, you know. Dear, dear man. Anyway, this show should really be dedicated to him, and his picture should be on those badges, but I don't know, Harold has some way of explaining that, but he said that Ben wanted me to be on be honored this year, and it's a great, great honor, and all you folks have been so nice. I've met most of you, and it's a privilege to be here. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Final thought, and I was remiss in this. Paul Fix's daughter, Mrs. Harry Carey Jr., is with us. Marilyn, would you care to stand? And another possible omission, this lady's good-looking son, Brandon. Brandon, would you please give us a wave of the hand? There we go. Thank you, Brandon. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have another panel tomorrow afternoon. The handled by Mr. Mike Newton. Point of information, the banquet tickets are for sale tomorrow evening. I understand we're going to have live entertainment with Mr. Shep Woolley, Mr. Dick Feller, and Mr. Johnny Crawford. Again, thank you for your patience. You've been most courteous, and a pleasant good evening to you.